Well, welcome back, fourth graders. This is where we left off yesterday. Honey Rose, for some reason, had us look at these two, what she thought were pretty important numbers. They're in percentage. So when you look at 100% is everything, 50% is half, and of course, 0 is nothing. Both of these numbers are pretty high. This is almost every single thing, 100%. 70% is more than half of whatever it is we're talking about. So I wonder how this relates to our water cycle, and what in the world did Honey Rose have in store for us to look at today? Wow, Honey Rose, don't you think that was a little bit dramatic? I mean, I know you love music and you certainly love science, but that was kind of a big, strong song for just a couple numbers, don't you think? Well, let's go take a look at what you had in mind. Well, there's those numbers again that Honey Rose was sharing with us. She obviously feels pretty strongly about them. There's 70%, 97%, and you saw that there was these two questions about the water on Earth. So as you look at these pictures and you think about our planet, I mean, we are covered in water. Oh, sure, there's land, we have continents, but we have so much of our Earth covered with oceans. So the two questions that we have in front of us, Honey Rose asks, how much of the Earth do you think is covered in water? Is that 70% of the Earth or 97% of the Earth? The second question, how much of the Earth's water is salt water? Well, let's take a second. Let's make a guess. Let's do this first question. How much of the Earth do you think is covered in water? Do you think it's the 70% or do you think it's the 97%? Why don't you pause right now? Your teachers will have you pause. Share your guess. What do you think it is? The Earth. I mean, there's a lot of water, but is it 70% or 97%? How much of our Earth is covered in water? So let's pause, take a guess, and then we'll come back. All right, well, you had a chance to take a guess there. Before we get to the answer, let's look here in this article again from yesterday, Water, Water Everywhere. And let's go down to this section where we left off called Water in the Oceans. Oop, I see that number already, 70%. Let's find out. Over 70% of the total surface of our planet is covered with, oh, there it is, covered with water. How much of the Earth's surface is covered in water? There you have it. 70% of our planet is covered with water, which means that 30%, because 30 plus 70 makes 100%, 30% of our planet then would be land, the continents, the places where we live, right? But 70% is covered in water. Now that's got to be a good thing, right? I mean, we need water to live, so 70%, that's awesome. We have that much water that covers our planet. Well, this other number here tells a different story. So let's take a look and read on. So here's where we left off about the water in the oceans and how we said 70% of our planet is covered with water. And about 96.5% it said of it is found in the oceans. 96.5. Oh, it rounds up to 97. That's why we use that number 97. It's rounded. About 96.5% of it is found in the oceans. Although there are no physical boundaries separating one ocean from the other, meaning they all flow together, they all connect together, but they still make up 70% of our planet. And 96% or 96.5, so 97% of that water is in our oceans. So then I guess we just need to drive to the oceans to get water, right? No, wait a minute, that can't be true. We live here in Minnesota, we're not next to an ocean. So where do we get our water then? If 70% of the earth is water, but 97% is in the oceans, man, that could be a problem for us. That only leaves 97 plus, how much makes 100? 97 plus 3% of the water isn't in the oceans? Man, that's not very much. Especially for people like us in Minnesota, where we're not even near an ocean. Now, there's another reason why that's a problem, and probably a bigger reason why it's a problem. Why is it that ocean water doesn't really help us so much? It has to go along with this question here. It says, how much of the Earth's water is salt water? Why don't you pause for a second and discuss why it is you think that ocean water isn't very helpful to us as human beings? All right, let's pause for a second. Well, let's go back in our story. This might help us understand why that salt water can be a problem. The title here, Water, Water Everywhere, it actually goes along with a poem from a long, long time ago. Over 200 years ago, Samuel Taylor Coleridge wrote a poem called Water, Water Everywhere. And as you read on, water, water everywhere, and all the boards did shrink. Water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. So what did he mean by this poem? Well, it tells the story of a ship stuck near Antarctica. Despite being surrounded by water on all sides, the sailors were dying of thirst. Wait a minute, that makes no sense. They're surrounded by water on all sides, but they're dying of thirst? Although the ocean's seawater supports other life forms, such as whales and sea turtles and many types of fish, it is, and here's a word, saline, meaning it's salty. It's salt water. Saline water or salt water is unfit for drinking by humans. It says on average, this water contains 3.5% of salt. Well, that's not terribly salty, is it? But it's so much salt that it doesn't do us any good. It's unfit for humans to drink. Now, if you've ever done this, where you've taken some water in a cup and you've added salt, like let's say maybe you gargled you had a sore throat or something, and you accidentally swallowed some of that, you know how horrible it tastes and how your body doesn't really want it. Or if you've been in the ocean and you've been swimming and you accidentally swallow some of that salty water, you know what that tastes like. It is not for humans, salt water. So that's a problem, isn't it? If 97% of our water, yeah, granted, we have a lot of water on the earth, 70%, but if 97% of it is salty water and unfit for humans, wow, that only leaves 3%. That's not very much water for all the people that live on this planet. Well, let's read on in our next section. So with that in mind, I'm going to take this next section from our science book. I know, like I said before, this is a big, gigantic book with a lot of information in it. We're just going to take a little bit from this page 252. It's titled A Precious Resource. And now we understand why. Now that we understand that there's 70% of water on Earth, but 97% of it is in oceans, which means it's salty, which means there's not much fresh water. It says, can you name all the ways that you use water? Water is an important resource used by all living things. People often need to share and conserve their sources of fresh, clean water. When you turn on a faucet, water flows out. Where does it come from? People can get their fresh water from rivers or lakes. They can also get fresh water from, here's a fancy word, aquifers. Aquifers. That's one we should probably say out loud a few times. An aquifer is a body of rock that stores, we know this word, groundwater. So an aquifer, I get it, that's the rock that holds groundwater underneath the surface of the earth. That's called an aquifer. It's got groundwater in it. People can drill into an aquifer and pump the water to the surface. Like when you see those water towers in Shakopee, those tall water towers, they drill down into the aquifer, into the groundwater, and it pumps it up into that huge water tower, and then it goes out to all the people's homes. Some people actually aren't part of that. They have their own well, and they drill down into the ground, and on their own property they have their own well because they're too far out away from town. So that's how people get their fresh water. But still doesn't help us understand, what do we do to conserve this water? And could we ever have a situation where we run out of water? As you read on in this section, for those of you that got far enough, you will find out that water is an extremely precious resource. That's what this is called, a precious resource, this section here. Well, I hope you learned quite a bit from this lesson. We now understand why Honey Rose picked such dramatic music at the start of it. It's because it's so important for us, for life, right? For us to live. There's a page here at the back of our section here about the water cycle. Page 257 is where it is. I'm going to put this page as a PDF in Canvas for those that maybe can't find their science book. But it's a great way for you to continue to practice and review. And maybe your teacher has a different assignment, or maybe they're going to do this with you, or maybe they've already assigned this page. But I'm going to put it back there for those that haven't. It's a great way for you to practice labeling, naming, drawing, telling about the water cycle. Like this here is our main three words: evaporation, precipitation, and condensation. So I hope that you learned quite a bit. I hope you have a nice weekend, and we will see you back here on Monday.